loves, welcome back to my channel. Today I am so happy to introduce you to a truly inspiring guest. Joining us today is Nicole, also known as the Soulful Expat. Hailing from New York with a proud Jamaican heritage, Nicole has an impressive background as a teacher with over 17 years experience, 10 years in New York and the rest spent abroad. Nicole is not just an educator, but she is an empowerment coach and a speaker who is passionate about guiding women on their expat journeys, self-discovery, and of course, transformation. Nicole helps women feel anchored, empowered, and free and grounded, and she's compassionate and insightful with her coaching technique, and she's always open to support women in embracing their new adventures, overcoming challenges, and fulfilling their highest potential. She has an interest in mindset coaching as well, healing and wellness, fashion, music, comedy. She loves history, and it's an absolute honor to speak with her today. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank
Thank you
you
for coming on
so
to my
much.
channel.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for joining me. So where in the world are you right now?
So right now I am in Bangkok, Thailand. I call it busy Bangkok, but yes, I am living in Thailand, all the way in Asia.
Thank you so much for taking the time out for talk to me today. All the way, wait, hold on a minute. We have like, I'm in LA, you're in Bangkok. I swear we have like was it a 10-hour difference?
Yes. I think it's 10 hour. I think so. Yeah, right?
Yeah,
It's like 10.
it's
Yeah,
evening where I am,
yeah,
morning where
it's
you are.
10. Because of time, because of the daylight saving time. Because normally on Eastern Standard it's exactly 12. So that's how I
Mhm.
use my base. And I know LA is 3 hours, so I like add 3 to that. So yes.
Yeah,
As you
well,
can see, that even with me being abroad for a while, I still like F it up.
it kind of works for me though, because it's kind of late in the evening. Usually when I'm speaking to my family back home in London, the earlier the better. So this is
Yeah.
the opposite for me. But this is great. Either way, I get to connect with you. I'm so happy to and honored to speak with you today. So let's get into it. Um, what led you to become a mindset and mindfulness coach?
It's interesting. So I have been abroad. Today is my 10-year anniversary, which is
Congratulations.
wild. Um, I feel like it's such a good question because no one's really asked me that. I the journey of being abroad and having to start essentially what feels like from scratch and realizing that a lot of things that maybe I was anchored in or like my environment was controlling it, I think I started to reflect on how I was always creating my reality. I don't know. It's just I know that kind of sounds like let me try to simplify that. I really had no one to blame for the kind of experience I was having. So let's say when I was living in the UAE, I think when I initially moved there for the first 2 years, I think I was in my comfort zone, even though I was in a new country, but I was operating on the way that I would move, let's say, when I was in New York, right? And then when a lot of things started going haywire, so for example, like one of my friends stopped speaking to me, I was having issues dating, um learning how to navigate a new space, I started to decide that I needed to take action. Right?
Mm.
And I think having so much downtime as you naturally do as someone who lives abroad, even if you have a job abroad, you'll notice that you have all these different things, like maybe your neighbor, your family, like you don't have these things around you as much. So you tend to be in your head, right? And for some people, that can be both a beautiful and a terrifying thing. And I actually experienced both, but it allowed me to really think about like my life and the life that I wanted to create. And I
Mm.
think also having a very strong spiritual base, like I was part of a spiritual community when I lived in New York. It was called Circles of Light. And one of the things that she often talked about was like, what do you want to be right about? Like it's a question that I use in any workshop that I do or anything. Like,
What
what
do
do
you
I
want
want to be
to be
right?
right about?
What
Hmm.
do I want to be right about? And
Mm.
at first it sounds kind of crazy because we live in a world, and this might sound very esoteric, but this is just what it is. We live in the 3D world, right? So we're generally forced to look at on the outside, and then that's how we judge and decide whether something is good or bad. Like we're looking for evidence in front, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I I started to start thinking about this whole thing, like, what do I really want to be right about? So let's say, for example, I am noticing that like dating is sucking in like the UAE. Let's just say I'm using that as an example, and I'm only looking at like outward, like I'm only seeing the experience of it sucking. And I started to think, like, how can I create something different? Like, how can I um create something that I want for myself, not based on what I see with my 3D eyes, but how can
Hmm.
I create something that's beyond that? And
So
then
it's
someone,
got like a spiritual insight, something
yes,
higher than who you were in that moment.
yes. So I felt like I wanted to kind of, if you will, test these spiritual ideologies because
Hmm.
I feel that, and I know that some spiritual ideologies would almost, I know people use the word bypassing, and I wouldn't actually say the word bypassing, but
Hmm.
I understand, and I know this might make some of you cringe because it sometimes feels uncomfortable. I can't want something and be in the energy of not wanting it. Like I can't hold two truths. It's just from a mathematical space, like it just can't happen. And
Hmm.
I think for me, though I understood that intuitively,
Hmm.
I decided like, oh, I want to like learn more about this. So then someone mentioned NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. So I
Right.
was like, you know what? Because I'm trusting not to trust myself and just like try these things out, right? Let me go and take a certification.
Hmm.
And when you learn about neurolinguistic programming, it's like, how can I reprogram in myself, my beliefs, my thoughts, my ideas to
Mm.
get a result that I actually want? And to
Mm.
be honest with you, when I took the certification, it was like everything that I learned in A Course in Miracles and with Circles of Light was that like I am a co-creator. And the reason how this even ties into living abroad is that when you move abroad, you realize that you actually don't have to live. You're no longer, let's say, operating from survival mode. I'm from America where race is such a big thing, where we talk about race. And when I say race, I'm not denying that I'm Black, right? Yes. But the context of it is always in this like, we need to be suffering, we need to struggle.
Right.
And I really wanted to challenge this idea.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, so my interest in that was like, I want to see what I can create. Like legit. Like I want to see what I want to create abroad. And I feel like it's been the most gratifying, uncomfortable, liberating and wow experience that I've had abroad because I started to realize how much I get to co-create my reality.
Mm.
And the beauty of being abroad is that you don't have all these things around you to push you from like uh creating the life that you really want. Like it's almost like you're getting like a blank slate again. It's like I think the beautiful thing about moving abroad, and sometimes people think about it as the country. It's like no, it's because it's a new environment. Being able to be in an environment where I get to play again and say, okay, nah, I don't want my life to look like this, and kind of play around with it. And that's what's kind of like fascinated me. And I think for the like I think when I say the first 5 or 6 years, I think I was just playing around with it. I don't think I was taking it seriously. It was kind of like, like a little kid, like, let me just kind of light the paper a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like that's what was doing.
Uh-huh.
And now, of course, if you ask me, now I feel more intentional. Now I'm like, okay, I know I have the power to co-create. Now, what is it that I want to do? I think before it was more like I was just kind of just throwing things out there to
Yeah.
kind of see if I'm going to prove myself right or wrong.
Mhm.
Um, because I don't think people realize the benefit that we have when we move out of our environments. Because I firmly believe that when we heal ourselves, when we create liberation with ourselves,
Mhm.
we liberate everyone around us.
We're gonna get back to that. We're gonna get back to that. So
Um,
you're currently in Asia,
yeah,
busy book.
busy Bangkok.
What have your experiences been traveling in Asia? What's it been like so far for you?
So, so I lived in China. So I will say that it's such night and day.
Mm.
Like if I was to talk about living in Shanghai, Shanghai, China, everyone knows, like, you would think I was half Chinese the way I talk about how much I loved it, right? I had a really good experience there, but I want to add that the reason why I think my experience was so great, and I didn't realize it while it was happening. I had a really great job. I liked my school. I had a really good community. I was in a relationship.
Hi.
I was in a city that was really easy to navigate. I really got on my fitness tip. Um,
You were
cost of cost of living was relatively low, so it's kind of like having the best of both worlds of like a it's Shanghai is not New York City, but in the context of a nice city that's you able to brunch and do all the things. So I had all these things, and the reason I'm bringing that is because oftentimes people ask, oh, what's your favorite place? And I'm starting to realize, at least for me and what I teach my clients, once you know what your values are, then the place is just like the cherry on the top.
Yeah.
So, so you
It's
don't
you,
start.
right? It's all
Yeah,
about you.
it's you, right? It's all you. Like everywhere you go, there you are. So that's why you'll never see me on these internet streets trying to shame a country. A country might bring something out of you that you maybe you like or you dislike. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the downside of China, so I won't, I'm going to keep it real, was always being photographed. Granted, I lived in Shanghai, but because of like, even though Shanghai is a global, city, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Chinese folks ain't never seen people like me, right? Some days I was in a happy mood and I'm like, because you need VPN in China, so it's a very closed country.
Mm-hmm.
There are moments when I'm like on a, if it feels like a sweet reason gesture, I'm like happy to take a picture. But then
Right.
other times when it feels like you're sneaking and you're like then I'm gonna bring New York to you. You know what I mean? Um, I'm gonna let y'all know. You're gonna F around and find out. Like, don't do that.
No for me.
Don't do that. Because we'll be taking pictures of each other. Don't do that. Um, so that would I would say, and I was there during COVID as well.
What was that
But,
like?
but but all in all, like if I had to rate, it was one of my most profound experiences. But
Mhm.
I will also add that I went to China after being in the UAE. I was really clear on who I am, what I need in a country, which is some of the things that I say. Like you need to have at least 3 or 4 things that you feel are most important, because
Right.
sometimes people just only look at money, or let's say they look at location or they look at weather, and then
Mhm.
they don't understand like why they're struggling or like having a really hard time.
Mhm.
So
That's
I
where the
think
grounding comes into it.
that's
That's
the
the
grounding aspect, yes. So I feel like for me, even though, I know that China generally, when I was moving to China, people was like, why? It's not seem like a desirable place. So when I was moving to the UAE, it was like, yes, girl, get the
yeah.
money, hope you make it a shake, like all that like typical thing.
Glamorize.
It's
Yeah.
glamorized. But I feel like because by the time of me going to China, I was so clear on like what I need, why I'm going there for. I feel like if you're getting up to leave your comforts of your home, you should get clear on a couple of these things. And I will also add that you will gain other clarity on other things. So this is not to say that you may not land in a country and realize there are more things. But I feel
Mm.
like the more you know about what you need, like it's the better you will have in the country. Now,
Mhm.
moving forward to Bangkok has been an eye opener. One, I came here, I was seeing someone, so we came together. So that was different, like coming to a country with someone you're seeing.
Mhm.
Um, and then to add to that, I think having been in China and being so used to being photographed and like people, it was weird when I remember being in a market with the guy and I was like looking around and I'm like, nobody's looking at me. Like no one's batting an eye, no one's and I share that.
Me
I know.
anymore.
I'm like, so two, and the reason why I even share that for two reasons. One, I realize how like even from a traumatic standpoint, like how when we and I liken that to like let's say if I'm leaving America, when you
Mhm,
get accustomed to living life a certain way, it's
mhm.
so good when you can like stop and be like, oh snap, it's not like this here. Because that moment was so pivotal to being here because I was like, oh shoot, I've almost like in my body I've just gotten so accustomed to like that's what it is. Like someone's gonna be looking at me, someone's gonna take a picture. So I was so happy to have that realization of like, oh, I really just kind of like taken that on. So even if you're watching, it's the same way like when you're moving from like whatever country and you're moving abroad, like you don't even realize how you've been operating in some type of survival way or just like, oh, like this just was happened. But I think what the growth happens is when you realize like, oh, I this doesn't have to be my experience anymore. So I
Did it feel
almost
different in your body?
like I felt it in my body, this sense of like I guess like it felt like a combination of like a sigh, like a relaxed, like,
Yeah.
wow, I don't have to be on stage.
You didn't have to perform.
I didn't have to perform. And I liken that to the same way as coming from America, coming from the UK and going to a new place because we're always surviving for our environment, right?
Right.
So I think that has been the greatest like awakening, even just still being in Asia, but just so differently. I was like, oh my gosh, like someone's asking me, no one's asking for a picture, no one's staring at me. Like, and the reason why this is connects even to NLP mindset is because sometimes we are responding to what we are accustomed to. And I
Mhm.
think that's why the mindfulness piece is so heavy for me because sometimes we can be so triggered by other things, but it could be triggered from like what we are accustomed to in our sad country, right? Like maybe someone's looking at you because they think you're beautiful. Maybe it's
And
not because
you're on the defense. Why she looking at
yeah, and
me?
you're on the
Yeah.
defense. But I
Uh-huh.
feel like it's so good to take that time to be like, whoo, like, all right, it's not. And I say this with compassion, but I think the combination of having compassion for yourself and also awareness is like
Yeah.
a game changer when you're abroad, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then
Okay.
yeah, that's been
Those are some
just
those are some stark cultural differences. Because
yeah,
you know, in America, you wouldn't be walking down the street and someone will be taking pictures of you unless you're Kim Kardashian or someone. You know,
1,000%,
no one cares.
1,000%.
Everyone's busy. It's a busy city. Everyone's working, getting to the bag or whatever. No one's stopping to take pictures of you. And then now you've gone to another country and now you're like in the spotlight. And it's like, oh, all eyes on me. So how am I supposed to behave? How am I supposed to talk? Am I always like you said, am I always supposed to be on and friendly and smiley and take pictures with them? Am I allowed to be upset? Am I allowed to be offended? Like all of this is the mindfulness and the awareness,
1,000%.
like you said.
It's
Yeah.
so, especially when you're in Asia where I mean, UAE is also considered Asian, especially in these communities where I like how you mentioned the anger piece. Like, you are not supposed to respond with aggression in these countries. Like, for some
Mm,
of these places, you might be deported, um, or better yet, like no one's going to respond. Like when you're in Asia, like and you're annoyed, you really need to take a couple of breaths. Like you can't respond like in the US, like I'm gonna tell you about yourself, I'm gonna raise your voice. So even that, and there's some moments when you probably want to raise your voice or you probably want to share your frustrations. And for me, the mindfulness piece and the mindset thing is really when I'm learning to choose my battles. I think having tools, or whether it's a deep breath, whether it's like remembering where you are. That's, I mean, I think that's key, or has been key to my longevity. And even with me saying this, like, I also keep it real. Like when something is frustrating me, I'm, like, I always honor my truth. I
Mhm.
think that has given me the most power. So this is not like some fake positivity when something is not bothering you, but I
Mhm.
think just knowing where you are and
That
having these things in, um just having that awareness. You're in a new country, you're in a new place, like, you can't like
we
come
do
with your
things
ways.
differently.
Yeah, like you can't do that.
You can't go in with your US
Yeah,
ways.
mindset, yeah.
So we spoke about mindfulness and we spoke about being aware in new environments. What techniques do you teach your clients? You mentioned breath work. Is that
Yeah,
one of the
I
major
do.
techniques you teach?
I actually don't teach breath work, but I do talk about breathing and just conscious breathing in terms of like taking deep breaths. Like I actually have something on my page, my IUG, where just like taking a deep breath, putting my hand on my chest. If you notice, I do this a lot. It gives me a lot of comfort, like a
Mhm.
deep breath, like a deep one,
Mhm.
and like a two.
And it's so easy, isn't it? Just to bring you back.
So easy. It brings you back. It brings you
Uh-huh.
back. Um, there's also another one, and the name is escaping me, but even this, there's a name for this, and forgive me that I can't remember the name, but this also is a way to oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember the name. But if you were listening to this, just rubbing your arms, it's kind of a way to bring yourself back to the present,
Mhm.
and it's a nurturing technique. Most of us do not touch ourselves.
Mhm.
But, like as weird as that may sound, probably even when we take a shower and that's it. Like we don't like touch our body, but it
Mhm.
is a technique. For me, when I work with clients, I often share tips, but I'm very big on finding things that resonate. Like, I think that when you find something that feels good to you, so I often say, for example, like, I had a client recently and I was sharing with her that, like, let's say you're a person who maybe you like to react and you want to like curse someone out, right? Maybe having a code word, for example. So, like, for me, my code word, which I got from hearing my mentor say it all the time. Like if someone's getting me really upset, like I might say, wow.
Oh, when she says, "Wow, it's
Yeah. So
on."
it's like I stretch that word out because it really is calming me down. It doesn't allow me to use a curse.
Mm.
Um, that one, or she used to always say, really?
Mm.
Really?
So
So
when
I think
when you
so.
say that, that is to remind yourself, okay,
Yeah.
I'm triggered in this moment, and I need to kind of find a technique to help me calm down. Or that word in itself is the
Yes,
trigger.
yes.
Down.
And you
Yeah.
can like have your own word. Sometimes, as I said, it can be touching yourself,
Mhm.
taking a deep breath, taking a walk. But I think most important is to deciding like what that thing is.
For
Like
you.
when some people have like an evil laugh, like sometimes that could be, a way to calm yourself down. Like, they laugh and you think they look like they're probably on meds or something, but that could be a way to um to kind of like calm yourself down. So I think just having a word or something that you say,
Mhm.
but even before we go into techniques, it's always good to kind of have an awareness of the
Mhm.
things that trigger, even though that word sometimes feels overused, but the things that create some type of feeling or sensation in your body that makes you probably uncomfortable. I think that it's just really good to have some way to, you should always have a way to kind of nurture yourself, you know?
Self-nurturing is really important. For me, I have been living in the US. I'm obviously originally from the UK, born and raised in London, and I've been living in the US for almost 7 years now. And I think one of the ways that I'm able to create a sense of mindfulness and grounding in new environments out here is connecting with nature. Because to me, nature's the same everywhere. So I will go for a walk, go to the local park, Go where there's some trees and some, you know, when people say go touch some grass, that's me. I'm gonna go find some grass to touch. And that
Mm,
lets me know I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm
yeah.
safe. That's definitely one way that I'm able to kind of get back into that mode of mindfulness and groundedness. And also just movement as well. Movement helps. It helps me get back into my body and back into the present moment and
Yeah.
less in my head and overthinking. I'm an overthinker
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
all of these techniques are they're very useful, and I would say anyone watching this who is can just I think just in general, wherever you are in the world, whether you're traveling or not, finding these techniques are great just for your general wellness, well-being, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you live in a city like I do, I purposely look up spaces or cafes where maybe they're hidden, where there's a lots of greenery, if there's a park,
Mm,
um, and I think also observe yourself, like also I think we really play down our intelligence a lot. There are
mm,
sometimes places that we go and we feel very calm. It's not an accident. Like, let's say if it's environmental spaces, maybe it doesn't feel cluttered, or you notice in your body, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to come here again. Take note of what that is. Maybe even write down, like, what is it that you feel? Maybe it could be certain colors. Maybe it can be the comfort of the couch. It could be maybe the people at the shop. Take a note of that. I think sometimes we take for granted what's obvious to us. And that, like, because now in this world where we're talking about wellness so much, I
mm.
think sometimes when people discuss it, it feels like it's something that you have to like go and like get a degree in, or you need to use these big words. And it's like
Spend a lot of
so,
money on, and it's just so.
yeah, it's so free and it's so here for us. I mean,
Mhm.
even something simple as opening the blinds. I came back from Chiang Mai and I was in the house and I was like, yo, why am I feeling like so low energy? And I was like, oh, I didn't open the blinds up. I opened the blinds. It was like super sunny in here. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I love when the sun is out. I love when I feel the sun in my apartment.
Same.
Just the same thing. So I feel like just kind of going back to like some of the basics. Like it doesn't always have to feel so complicated. Play music. Same thing I did yesterday. I was kind of feeling lethargic. I was really loving my bed. And one thing I know, play some reggae. What? Play some dancehall. What? I'm still living in the 90s. Listen. All right. And I was in
The
here and
happy
I was like,
place.
it's my happy place. Like,
Yeah.
I think just also tapping into your own intelligence. Like
Mm.
sometimes I don't want to hear like meditation music. Like sometimes that's not the vibe. So just learning to trust yourself more is
And doing
key.
what's best for you.
Yeah, and finding what's best for you.
Absolutely.
Just being aware. I think practicing a lot of self-awareness, I
Mm.
think would be very helpful for many people, because I think sometimes we're relying on other people to tell us. And even if I can share all my tips, but like also trust yourself as well, as equally as much as like getting someone's advice. And what I will also say, some of the things, if not a lot of the things, that's going to give you the most peace and joy, it's going to be so mundane. Like
Yeah.
you'll be so surprised. It's like mundane, and just do it every day. Like I think people want things, they want to do one thing one day and then like they feel like their whole life is like great. And I think about my own morning habits of like meditation. Sometimes I listen to this clubhouse room, which I actually love, playing music. Like, I'm just kind of, I do the things all the time. And if you
Simple
do
thing.
something, yeah, if you do the things all the time, you're like, oh, this is why I feel so great. But it's not because I did it one time. Like,
Mm,
you don't go to the gym and work out one day and now you have muscles, right? Like you
mm.
build a habit. So yeah.
It's like a programming. You program yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
things that I like to do is go for a walk in the morning. That helps me clear my mind and I can come back inside and start my day. Um, what would you say are some common mental health or emotional challenges you faced as a Black woman living abroad?
I think, it's funny, you hear this a lot. I think feeling worthy or feeling enough
Mm,
in spaces. I think going back to being in the US, I think sometimes coming into places and feeling like, oh, I'm gonna be like, let's say being in Asia, for example, maybe it could be body type, like not feeling desirable. Maybe this, like, oh, I'm so
real.
loud, or I'm so expressive. Um, Feeling liked, I think in certain spaces. I think emotionally, I think just wanting to fit, and I don't really like the idea of fitting in. I like the idea of integrating. That's what I say when I talk to clients, because
Mhm.
I don't believe that you need to like give up who you are to be in a space and flourish. But I think oftentimes it's like, how do I integrate? I think if you're coming from an American context, I
Mhm.
think it always paints the Black woman in like these two set ways. And there's not enough of sharing that we're so like multifaceted.
Yeah,
So
we're not
it's
a monolith. There are different
yeah,
types.
not a monolith. So it's always like either you're like firm and loud and like problematic and la la la, or it's like you're demure and you're just
Mhm.
like this way. So especially as someone who falls like in the middle,
In
I
the
think
middle.
that I would say, and that's actually when I think about the women I want to work with, um are the women who are multifaceted. So they celebrate their Blackness, they enjoy their culture. Like if anyone knows me, they always know I'm Jamaican. I feel like they know I'm Jamaican more than they know I'm American, to
And
be honest.
Jamaican women are loud and proud.
Yeah. Right. So I think women like that who they love their Black. This is the woman I speak to, and this is what I find to be, especially when it comes to moving abroad. Women who are maybe in their mid age, maybe they're in or late 20s,
Mhm.
early 30s, they are really proud of like their Blackness, but maybe there's like this toss up of like, yeah, I love my Blackness, but yes, I also want to integrate and I also want to have friends who are from other places. Yes, I love Black men. I'm only speaking for heterosexual women. Yes, I love Black women, excuse me, Black men, and I want to date. And let's say I'm also open to being
Yeah.
um outside of my race. Yes, I want to fight the struggle and I want to be an activist and I want like us to succeed, and I just want to like live joyfully. I don't think there is a market that speaks to women, and I say that because I'm in that, like that I
I feel
value.
like I am too.
Like
It's like, where
I
do I
feel like
fit in?
I think I think that especially when it comes to moving abroad, I don't think that there's enough people talking to us or the people who really value living full lives. I
Mhm.
think that when the Black story, especially, and I've said this to you the last time we spoke, like especially when it comes to moving abroad, I only could speak from the American context. It's always from this only, escapism. I hate America. Oftentimes it's maybe women who maybe had some really bad relationships with men. Like, I mean, we all have, right? Or
Mhm.
bad situations, but it's usually on this context of like, I don't want one. And I'm like, nah, I do. Like I
Yeah,
do.
yeah, that's true.
um,
Well,
um
relate to I want
yeah.
one.
So I find it's like there's not enough people talking to like us,
Mhm.
like these, I think of like the
The
Tracy Ellis Ross,
in-betweeners.
the in-betweeners. I mean, like if there was a name, right? The in-betweeners, like we celebrate who we are. We're unapologetic about it. We're
We're
not trying
also
to be,
open.
yes, we're open. We want to grow, and I
Mhm.
think the same thing happens even when because sometimes when I'm also with other groups abroad, I definitely feel like certain things I could really connect with them. So maybe about the fight and the la la la. But then when it made me talk about, let's say, growth and like creating a different paradigm, then they're looking at me like, sis, like they're so stuck in the struggle,
Mhm.
So then let's say if I'm deciding to do something like you, like going hiking, then I might be the only one. You know what I
Mm,
mean? If I'm
yeah.
going to a meditation class, then I am the only one. Or if I am taking an NLP, I am the only one. And so that's the hardest part is like the and is like I posted a thing on Threads the other day. Like I want to be the champion of the and conversation. Like, why is it that we always have to isolate both? Like, why can't I be a proud Black woman who wants to heal, who wants to create a new paradigm, who wants
Mhm.
to go abroad from the choice of joy and
Yeah.
love and
Yeah. Yeah.
healing? You
Yeah.
know,
I always get
so
asked the question, what are you doing in LA? And I'm like, living. Like what,
yeah.
I'm just living. I always feel like I have always been that yes and type of girly. And also I've always been passionate about wellness. And I think many women who are also passionate about wellness, Black women especially, can relate to this. Oh yes, there are issues with representation in wellness spaces, but oftentimes we are the only ones, there's not a lot of us in those spaces. And it's not just because there isn't representation, it's because there aren't many people who are open to being in those spaces, to learning about the topics that we're talking about today. And that's one of the reasons why I even invented this platform, because I want to share with everyone that it's for all of us and it's gonna elevate us, it's gonna benefit us. Let's learn and grow, thrive, and be joyful together. So
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that. And you mentioned something else about feeling worthy. That resonates with me. Being in LA, especially, it's pretty hard. I mean, I did some work as a commercial actress, and when my agent told me that I mean, in a nutshell, he said I was kind of like normal looking. That made me feel, and I'm absolutely fine with being normal, but that made me feel like, oh, well, it really just brought it home that beauty standards are very, very different in different
Mm,
places. And I'm not gonna lie, for a while, it made me feel like I wasn't good enough to
mm,
to get a certain campaign or to book a certain gig or a certain job, because I was only normal looking. I wasn't beautiful enough. I didn't meet the beauty standards of Hollywood. And sometimes it still gets me to this day, but it has taken some time for me to kind of unravel those thoughts of unworthiness. Um, and just accepting who I am and feeling great in the skin that I'm in. I follow this really well-known author, and she's an influencer, and she was in Jamaica recently, and she said something so profound. She said, "You're not ugly, you're just not home." And
mm.
I was like, what? She's like, she's a dark-skinned Black woman with a shortcut like you, even lower than you. She's got these beautiful plump lips, a black nose, black features. She looks like a Jamaican woman. She's in Jamaica, and she's like, every time I walk out the house, people call me beautiful. People are complimenting me. She's like, I don't get that in the UK because that's not my home. That's not my
Mm,
home. I'm not the majority there. Where I'm the majority, that's where I'm appreciated. And that really resonated with me. I was like, wow, that's so true. Even though there are people of color and Black people in America, especially LA, but LA is a place where the most beautiful people from all
yeah,
around the world come to
yeah,
work. So it's not a place where typically normal people come to make it in Hollywood. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that feeling of worthiness and do I belong and do I fit in is definitely something that would pop up when you're traveling abroad and when you settle down in another country. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's very, very real. Very,
So,
very real.
so real.
And if that's something that any of you are experiencing right now, like, I would say I would say be open to working with someone and speaking to someone about it, even if it is with a therapist, a coach, or a friend. Don't hold that in, because what happens is it kind of like eats you up from the inside, and the next thing you know, you're in the house with the blinds closed, and you're not leaving the house because you don't think you're good enough, and because you
That,
don't feel, and you just
that,
give up.
and it's interesting because I was watching, I don't know if you watched the Super Soulful Sundays with India
Oh, my favorite.
Akriti
My favorite.
and Oprah. And the question, and I wrote it on my threads yesterday. She was like, what would you do if you knew you were 100% worthy? And
Wow.
I thought, like, it's so beautiful. It was such a good question.
Pretty good
Um,
question.
because that was something I also shared on my threads. I've been liking threads, so hence me mentioning, but that has been my recent path to liberation abroad, has been truly believing that I am where I'm supposed to be.
Mm,
As someone who's created like an entrepreneur group abroad, hosted a first retreat, and a lot of these things I've done being kind of like the only, right? And one of the things that I said to the women, and I'm very honest about these things because one of the things that they love about me is my authenticity. So I don't like try to like mask, and I think for me, part of the worthiness conversation was when I'm in a space and I'm the only Black woman, like, who the F am I? Like, am I supposed to be here? Like, even if
mm.
I'm creating it.
Damn.
And I think for me, Eckhart Tolle in New Earth, there's a part in the book where he says, like, act as if you have chosen the given moment.
Mm.
And I think it's the same thing as 100% worthy question. If you're into cognitive behavior, I don't even remember the name, but it's CB, I don't know. But I know I kind of,
Maybe therapy, that's the only
yeah, CBT, yes, yes. So basically, like if I were to walk into spaces as if I chose to be there, like I'm gonna energetically show up differently. But if I
Mm.
walk into a space questioning, then that's gonna also be felt. So that's been my new conscious awareness of
Same. Walking
walking
in
into
space like you
space,
belong there. Yes.
because
Uh,
it's felt like it's felt like, and not in an arrogant way, but just like even at my job, like I remember being part of the team with two other South African men who I absolutely love. And I remember I told them I was here to bring a little razzle, a little razzle.
Razzle
And
dazzle.
and I was saying that like really in a funny way. And it was at the end of the year, I realized the value that I brought to their lives, just in the same way they brought it to me. And it's always easy to see how other people, like we value them, but we don't realize like what we add to the
Mm.
space. I think it's more about, and this goes to any Black woman watching this, I feel like sometimes, and this is only a recent realization, guys. So this is not me speaking to you like I've been new to, like I knew this all along. I wish I knew this before, is sometimes you will be the first one. Just like how the Oprahs, the Toni Morrisons, the Bell Hooks, like the Asada Shakurs, like sometimes you are going to be placed in a position where you are the first, like you are the trailblazer. And I'm going to let you know, it's not the most comfortable feeling. But I think when you recognize that, because some of us are looking for someone to lead the way, I think that's why it is important. But sometimes you've been tasked with the job to be the first. Like
And
sometimes
all the
it just is,
exploring and to learn all the lessons.
to learn all the lessons. Like sometimes it's just you.
Yeah, that resonates with me. I feel like I have been the first in many things, and I'm like, oh, it does feel burdensome sometimes, but also it's a privilege and it's a blessing to be the first. It's like I've been chosen to do this, so I'm going to stand in this moment And like you said, bring that energy of I'm supposed to be here, I belong. And yeah, that's the kind of mindset that I have now, with certain things. I belong. Like I said, creating this platform, it's me forging my own, it's taking up space. You know,
Mhm.
I'm not asking for permission. I'm not asking for you to provide a platform for me to speak about things that affect women that look like me, or to talk about wellness, or to share, knowledge and all the great things that we're sharing today and in other interviews that I'm doing. I'm creating that space for myself. I'm taking up that space
Mm.
myself.
Yeah.
So yes, I
No.
love that. I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, how can you said something that I always say, wherever you wherever you wherever you are, there you are. Is that how you say
Yeah.
it?
Wherever you go, there you are.
Wherever I am, wherever I
Yeah.
am, there I am. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you are, there you are. Such a profound statement. First of all, can you tell us what that means? And then, secondly, can you tell us how we can form a sense of home within ourselves and belonging in new spaces?
Hit you with the tough questions. I love it. Um, I think firstly, wherever you go, there you are. Like, I think as much as I love like the fact that I've lived in, nearly 3.5 places. I say half because I was 7 months in Egypt, so I feel like I can own that. Um,
Of
I think
course,
this idea,
of course.
the idea of, oh, I'm gonna go someplace and like I'm gonna keep chasing the new place and like new things are going to happen. I just don't believe that. I think it's similar to how people talk about money and how the more you have, you just amplify who you were with $5, the same way you are with 500. I see the same thing about wherever you go. Like everywhere you go just kind of shows who you are in your soul, like who you are as a person, your beliefs, your ideas. The places just change, but you're still there. You are the common denominator. There is a saying that like the way you do one thing is how you do everything. So chances are like if the way you were living or thriving in your own country, that's essentially what you're going to do in your new country. I mean, like for me, that's why I don't talk about leaving America per se in some kind of like I hate it or whatever, because I had a very full life in New York. You know, did I have to make adjustments in all the other countries? Yes. But some of the things that I'm doing, I think that's probably why some people aren't so surprised by my lifestyle. Why? Because there's still tenets of like Nicole from New York. It's not that different.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but the thing about it is that some of the things that you may have done in your own country, your own state, may work well there, but it's not going to, let's say, work well, let's say in Asia or, in Europe. And I think being able to understand that like you are always a common denominator where you are, because being empowered and knowing that you can change, that's what makes your life like just really expansive. But if you're always thinking about like something on the outside, so oh, it's America, oh, it's Spain, oh, it's Thailand, like you're gonna go to all 195 countries I think we have. You're gonna go to every country and you're gonna make it about the country. That's the reason why, like for me, I get the ick when people talk about certain countries being only great for us. Like I will scream at the hilltops. I think it's really different to go to a place and feel like doesn't have resonance, but to make a remark to tell me where I should go, as you don't know my soul, like you don't know where I could thrive. Um, I think
Mm.
the more inner work that you do, the most self-development that you do within yourself, you'll start to recognize that, whoa, I could thrive everywhere. It's like one of Jay-Z's
Yeah.
lines that I like when he says, "Put me anywhere on God green earth, I'll triple my worth." And I
I
think
love
about
that.
even though I'm not like, I'm not trying to be a billionaire in that way, but the message I got from that was that like I can thrive wherever you put me.
I
And
have
when
a
you,
favorite quote from Jay-Z too. I'm good on any MLK Boulevard.
I like that. See, look at us. Look at
Because
Jay-Z.
when I moved to LA, I lived in Koreatown. I lived in Leimert Park, which is very close to MLK Boulevard. And people were like, "Oh my God, you moved from London to go to live in South Central?" I'm like, "I'm good everywhere because I'm me."
The
I
part.
am me. I've been doing the work. I'm still doing the work. I am me. So yes,
Yeah.
wherever you go, there you are. That's it. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, wherever you go, there you are. So I love the stance. Hence why I've changed like this whole thing about being empowered coaching is because there's so much you can do with your life when you are empowered from within. There's going to
Mm,
be a lot of things in the world, in the 3D world, that you'll never have control over. You know,
mm,
I'm very big of being in the world but not of it, or having a 5D mentality but be living in a 3D world, because you move differently when you realize that you can respond to, like, life is just how we respond to it, right? It's like, it's how we respond to it, it's how we think of it, you know. And that's, it's like, what more, like, going back to the question, what do you want to be right about? I'm like, I was listening to Dame Dash like 2 years ago, and he said something like, if I'm gonna create a dream for myself, like, wouldn't I win in this dream? And I feel like
right. Oh,
every
wow.
day is an opportunity to like win at this thing. So would I make myself feel like a victim or a victor? You know, would I be joyful or would I be sad? Would I be inspired or would I be jealous and envious?
Mm,
So learning to be a co-creator, and that's what I was talking about in the beginning. I think oftentimes we're only talking about the struggle, and
mhm,
I think being aware of struggle is more powerful than like embodying it. Like, I don't want to embody struggle. I will never deny what my ancestors have gone through, what people currently go through. But if you think about it from the sense, like, if you were sick, I can't help you if I'm also sick. It just can't happen. I have to be well,
mhm,
you know? So every time when I'm doing this kind of work, I know that my presence, my energy, when I show up, I'm going to empower you so that you can then do that.
mhm,
That's the
mhm,
only way we're going to rise. And
mhm,
maybe because my calling isn't that, but I just know, the more and more that I get tapped into this, like understanding like the realms,
mhm.
I understand that like I have to disengage from the things that are going to bring me down,
And
you
things that
know,
are beyond your control.
beyond my
One of the
control.
biggest things that I've learned is that I am home. I struggled when I first moved here. I struggled with the whole fitting in and my work, all the things that we've discussed. And does it feel like home? Does it feel like home? People always ask me, is that home to you? And I don't know, it's kind of hard to answer that question because wherever you go, there you are. I am home.
Hmm.
Within me, I am home. It doesn't matter where I am because I'm always going to be there. I'm the common denominator,
You're the
regardless.
common
And
denominator.
I can change my environment if I need to change my environment.
1000%. And I feel like the context of home changes a lot once you move abroad, you know, like once you, I think to me, I find that home starts to be a lot of different places. And I think that's why I talk about being grounded, because now it's beyond just being in a house in a neighborhood, you
Mhm.
know, like there are certain places and things that I do here in time. I mean, even just when I'm in Chiang Mai, for example, there's certain parts that like it just feels like Jamaica. Like it feels like the hills, you know, you see the roosters out. Like it really has like resonance where I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know? Or I could be going on a Thursday night to my favorite reggae spot and then they're playing like Garnet Silk and they're playing like Buju, and I'm like, oh, this feels like
Oh,
you know. So sometimes it's actually like these these pocket moments. Um I definitely think that it changes a lot as you move abroad. Like it's hard to, you know, it's almost like I can't like answer the question, because you're right.
yeah.
Home is like in myself, and I'm finding pockets. Um, I think I'm really thankful that I was raised in a household that was very proud of like their culture and like, so I think I bring that with me everywhere, like the Jamaican culture. And I think it's something that I'm very proud of. I get really excited when I'm in new spaces and I see people who love Jamaican culture. So that feels really home for me.
Mhm.
I think in addition to the like having the self-awareness and doing the inner work is like getting to know your culture, your family. I think that creates home in the body. Which is quite different from like if you don't have that and then another task would be figuring out what that is to you. I think that's generally sometimes I for people who are, if I was saying having a struggle, I think when they don't have like a culture. And when I say culture, it doesn't mean that your family have to be from the islands, but like maybe you don't have any traditions or routine, like or things that are rituals that you used to do back home and now trying to create that. I
Mhm.
think that because that gives you a level of groundingness, like
Yeah.
that people don't talk about a lot about. So I have been fortunate that I had that before moving abroad, you know? So it's not a foreign. So I think when you don't have that, then you will constantly be on the search. You see a lot of like African Americans going to, let's say, Africa. You see,
Mhm.
even I've seen even people like be here, like in Asia, like in Chiang Mai, where they feel connected to the culture, going to Bali and feeling like, you know, I do understand how that's a very integral part to
Mhm.
feeling grounded. And only you know when you feel that like connection.
I'm
Um,
so glad that you said that because my next question was gonna be how can you stay connected to your roots and embrace a new culture when you're abroad? How do you do both?
I can tell you something. I think just being proud. I think like when it's so funny. I talk about like going to this reggae spot here in Bangkok, and you know, quiet as kept, a white man from Texas who I absolutely love. We work together, and the reason why I'm saying that, not because I'm saying that because of me being proud and talking about like my culture, he then said, "Oh my gosh, I'm part of a band. I think you would like it." You know,
Ah,
so even so, because like when people say, "Oh, how did you find this place? Were you searching?" I'm like, "Nah, it's actually like my white friend from Texas." And I say that specifically because like when you have these ideology of like Texas and people, and I think it was because I shared my enthusiasm for something. I was people forget to like say what they love. You know, we talk a lot about what we hate, but sometimes we don't talk about what we love
share
with
what we
people,
love.
you
Yes.
know? So that create, and then naturally, you know, you get into one environment and someone's they especially if you post it on social, "Oh, Nicole, I thought of you. This is here." And then like it creates this synergy. So I
And
of course
community too.
and community and community. So I think not being afraid to say like what you miss or what you like, and of course like of course searching it out, but I think something is beautiful when someone else gives you the recommendation because it feels a little bit more personal and it feels like, okay, I know you're gonna love this.
Mhm.
um but going back to what I said in the beginning, I'm always curious about other people's culture. I enjoy going to events with other people. I think if you can try to make friends when you're abroad with people that come from that country, I mean, you really want to do that in the most authentic way. And sometimes authentic way might be a group, looking up meetup.com, like what events are happening in the um that's happening. I think don't overthink it. You know,
Yeah.
speaking to an overthinker here, but if they're having the event and you come, trust me, they're really excited. Like think
Mhm.
anybody's excited when you want to know more about them. Like no one's ever going to be angry that you want to know more about them.
Yeah.
Um it's the best way to get your in on the door rather than coming there and being that silly traveler that makes a lot of like assumptions. I think having a really curious mind, um telling people, hey, like, you know, if you're having an event, like also asking, um you'd be surprised how people want to embrace and people want to share.
Mhm.
I don't care what nationality, whatever, but most people are looking to connect. People
Mhm.
are looking to share the best parts of like who they are with you,
Mhm.
and never take that for granted, you know. So I always just try to do both. I think just
That's a great way to embrace your roots, your culture, and then learn something new about the new space that you're in, the people that are native to that space, and forge a new community, because community is important. It's so important when moving abroad. It can be really really lonely when you're a traveler and you move somewhere you don't know anyone, there's no family. It can be very, very lonely. And that's something to think about if you're considering moving abroad. Um, Having a list of places that you're going to visit, and I mean, you're the coach. Tell us what's a great how do we forge community abroad?
listen. First of all, I think number one is you need to want to, like, that's number one. And number two, I think understanding what community means to you. Like, I remember I did an IG live and then someone said, "What's community?" And I said, it's a group to me that share a common goal or an outlook, right? Going back to the whole being a Black woman conversation, I believe that like you need to have a variety of community. Yes, you should be a part of, like, if you're a Black woman and you're watching this, you should be a part of like a Black group, because I think it's really important to be in a space where you have shared experiences, especially if you are having something that you are, trying to grapple with, and you need someone who can really see you and understand, right? Because there's only but so much. Let's say if I was speaking to my Thai friend, for example, there's only but so much they can really understand, and not because they mean me anything bad, it's just they just wouldn't probably understand, right? But in addition to that, if you really want to have an expansive experience, I would also, like, if you really want to grow, and that's my girls in the in between, right? You girls, you see me, right? Like, you boy, yeah, the in betweeners, right? That should be a new name, right? The in betweeners, you should join all the groups that tickle your fancy. And so whether it's an entrepreneur group, it's a hiking group, um, let's say if you're a digital nomad or you're an entrepreneur,
Absolutely.
yes, there might be an overlap. And I do understand it does require more work than, let's say, if you were home, right? But you get in what you put in, right? Like, and that's just anything, a relationship, your time. And the beautiful thing about relationships, I always say it's more valuable than money. Why? Because just like how I could ask somebody and say I miss, let's say, reggae music, and someone can put me on to that, you'd be surprised the amount of other things that you can become privy to, whether it's like visa, whether it's a job, whether it's a conference, whether it's, like, you open up a whole other world
Hmm.
when you get into these very specific groups. um the reason why I even started getting so passionate about coaching, in addition to the mindset itself, was because I realized how I was looking at my experience abroad so limited. I thought that I just had to copy paste like my life in New York and do it. And I didn't realize how, like, now I'm in a space where I'm like, oh, I think I just want to work part-time. I just want to only coach. I want to just do retreats. I want to hold workshops. Like, I don't think I would have started thinking that way if I didn't start intermingling with all these different people. I didn't, my possibility radar like opened up greatly, right? Because you are the average of the 5 people you keep around you. Like, I remember when I used to hear that at first, I was like,
No,
but
I
it
think
really is
true.
true. Like, when you're working on yourself, yes, you are the common denominator, but second to that, the people that you speak, that you're around. So if everyone you're around is like talking about how horrible the experience is and la 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 la, like, you start to even project that onto yourself, and you probably haven't even done anything and you're already thinking negatively. But let's say you're around someone who's in a thriving relationship, they love where they work, they're really healthy, it's gonna rub off on you. Like, it's just really, and I wish, I mean, I did it a little bit when I was in the UAE. When I moved to China, I was very intentional. And now that I'm in Bangkok, even more intentional with that. Like, those are the type of things that I talk about, with the women that I work with is like, what is it that you want your life to be like? Like what? Like let's get really wild in our dreams. Like we don't we let's like if nothing, like tell me all the things. Cause I wish somebody was talking to me about these things. I realized I had a lot of limited, especially around relationships, especially around jobs. Like I really had a very limited viewpoint. And
Mm.
I consider myself a very positive person, but you don't know what you don't know. Like if all I know is my reference of what I knew before, then it's natural to just think there, right? That's the reason why people hire coaches and why people are have mentorships and masterminds, because someone has some experience that you didn't have, and then they're
Right.
sharing it with you.
They can
And
impart them, yeah.
yeah, and oftentimes they're speeding up, so instead of taking 10 years to do something, you now get all the magic in 1 year or
That's
6 months.
what that's what I love. I always encourage people to get coaches. I think coaches are great because, like you said, instead of like going through the 10 years of all the work, a coach can come and you can accomplish that in 2 years. So if you can invest in a coach, or if you can't, if it's not in your budget, get around people who are doing the things that you want to do, so that you can kind of broaden your horizons and see what's possible.
And even if you don't know what you want, just I would encourage, I would challenge you, I would invite you, just join a group with people who are just doing a variety thing, not to put you in comparison mode, but just to start expanding your
Mhm.
mind as to what's possible.
Expanding your mind on what's possible.
Like,
That's
because
work.
I'm like, I was messaging my siblings yesterday. I was like, I didn't come here to suffer. Like, I understand challenges are a part of life, but like, I'm not gonna sign up to struggle. Like,
Mhm.
I'm just not. And if someone's gonna show me like an easy way to do something, sign me up, please.
Hello. I mean, think about it. You've been going to the gym for so many years.
Yeah,
Been doing
yeah.
the workouts by yourself, but still, we don't see any changes in your body. It's time to hire a personal trainer because that person knows, they have the education, they have the experience, they've worked with other people that are like you, they know what they're doing, and they can help you speed up that process. We're not going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not working. We need to speak to someone. We need to get around people who know better, who could
Yeah.
show us better. And that's just it, really. That's
That's
just it.
You could be feeling really good. You could feel really content. You could feel really hopeful, ecstatic.
Mm,
Like, I just feel like we should all be just winning out here. We should all feel liberated. One of my favorite quotes from Bob Marley. But the thing that's been just I've been thinking a lot about, even though I know he got it from Marcus Garvey, I want to throw all my credits when I am aware of them. But essentially emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None
mm,
but ourselves can free our minds, and um I've been feeling just this call to talk more about that, because I understand in America, we're talking a lot about financial freedom and Black excellence. But I think that before all those things, we really should be talking about like our mind. We should really be, um, I love the hashtag Black boy joy, Black man joy, Black woman joy. Um, and I think because it seems so minimal, but you don't realize that when you feel good, it really translates to the experiences you have everywhere. It's quite healing.
it is.
Um,
It
and
is.
and for those of us that have been brave enough, courageous enough to leave the comforts of our home, like we can, and I know this sounds very bold, but we can heal the planet. We can really heal our ancestors, because we have an advantage of being able to be out of our typical environment.
Mhm.
Um, and we can like shift. we really can shift the planet. And I do feel like the planet is going through an awakening. People are having conversations, people are more curious. And I think COVID really woke a lot of people up, because people started to think about like their values, what makes them happy. We have the election in the US happening right now, right? And technology, we have AI, we have all these things. And even with AI, right, people are saying that you can't duplicate personality, right? Like, how we're in the age now on Instagram where people want authenticity, right? So we're in a great time where we get to dig deeper. And
Mm,
I think I would dare to say that most all of us who are on this journey abroad, not only us healing ourselves, we get to heal the planet, you
mm,
know? Um, and once we start realizing our power,
mhm,
it's like game over. I think people can, for example, when the Black Panther movie came out, people don't realize that the reason why it was so impactful is because we saw ourselves differently, even in a fictional, movie,
we were all
right?
empowered. We
We
all
were
left feeling like
empowered.
superheroes. Yes.
Exactly. So can
Yeah.
you imagine if we acted like we had that energy all the time? Like the planet would shift.
Unbelievable.
The
Yeah.
planet would shift. And I think that that's one, like, if you are watching this and you're abroad, like, just know that you can do that. Not to say you can't do it if you're in America, but I understand why it's more challenging, because as a mindset coach, I understand that when we change our environment, it puts us in putting yourself in an environment to win is going to make you win. It's why we feel so rejuvenated after a retreat. It's why we feel rejuvenated when we're on vacation. It's because environment is changing. It's often more difficult to change in the same environment that's causing you pain. So I understand it's not impossible, but it can be more difficult,
Mhm.
right? If you are in that experience, I would encourage you to go into nature as much as you can. Yeah, environment is the only is one of the one ways for changing a behavior. Um,
Mm.
it impacts our ability to change. So this is like research based, and I not that I need research to say, but as I think of the correlation of living abroad,
Yeah.
I ha- I have more understanding as to why, let's say, if you are in said um environment, why it might be harder
Mhm.
to then be like to think a certain way, right? You really have to be in and that I think now I truly understand, I think when you understand like the human, like how the human mind works and just like the psychology of it, it
Mhm.
makes me understand why things happen the way that they do. So even if I'm not using it from the spiritual element, right? It's why being in a group program, why being in a mentorship. Like sometimes when we think about it, when I used to hear it, it would just seem like I'm trying to be salesy and I'm just trying to like, you could think about it in that way. Like I'm just trying to sell you a program or whatever. But I now understand these are all curtailed environment. It's like why we go to church, for example, or why we go to like a conference. Like anyone that's thriving in life, they're in some kind of environment,
Mhm.
because we've been created for greatness, but we've been conditioned based on whether our traumas. And if you get into like the nitty gritty of understanding, let's say epigenetics, and you understand that ancestry, especially us as Black folks, right, there are certain traumas that are just like in our body that
Just
we
living
don't even
in our
that
body.
we that's carried on, right? So you're either going to be in an environment that's going to enforce these things. So whether that's thinking like I'm limited, like I can't have, and of course, evidence is when we're seeing with our 3D eyes. That means what I see in front of me. So if I'm seeing someone being gunned down by a police officer, if I'm seeing racism, then we can keep affirming that as our experience. But
Mhm.
now when I allow myself to, let's say, be in, let's say, China, or be in Thailand, or be in the UAE, be in Europe, and now I have like a new environment, I can give myself the time and space to start thinking other thoughts, or, behaviors.
New ideas. New ideas. You're exposed to new things, new information, right?
New information, right? Because every day we're either, it's kind of like, if you're going to, like, you're going to enforce a new pattern, but it's
Mm,
easier to do that when you're in a different environment. It's just factual, you
mm,
know. That's why you have, like, and it doesn't help, like, if you're, let's say, in the US and all you do is sit and watch the news. It's like
mm,
you're going to keep confirming like a certain thing.
mm,
um and if you're not aware of it, and I think because we all want belonging, sometimes we put ourselves out of belonging. We might put ourselves in the spaces that don't liberate us, that don't free us,
mm.
that they keep us limited.
Put yourself in spaces that liberate your mind,
Yeah.
that free you and expand
Yeah,
your
yeah.
capacity. Yeah, yeah,
And the thing about unlearning is actually more challenging than learning, like learning something new.
yeah.
Because depending on how old you are, depending, that's how many years how many weeks, how many hours you've had this idea.
Hmm.
So it's not like a one-off. It's kind of like what I talked about with meditation or mindfulness. Like, these aren't things you just do one day and then all of a sudden, like, I am now, like I said to you, I am now in, like, there's the phases of this work. I am now in the phase of, like, I'm knowing, like, I know this is true. Like I'm not even trying to convince you. It's like I know this. But it took me a while. My spiritual and understanding started like in 2007 or something.
Yeah. You had to reprogram. It's like reprogramming,
Yes.
building new habits, reprogramming your mindset, you
Yes.
teaching your body and your nervous system a new way of being.
I
It's
mean, even I mean, and for me, it's like, and now I understand why um what's her name? Bell Hooks. Um, what's his name? He was in Turkey. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm having a slip. Okay, I'm thinking about these very popular Black authors,
Mhm,
who a lot of their writing is around the lines of liberation and
mhm,
peace, and also the struggle, but the lens that they were able to discuss these things were so different because they were no longer in America. you know
mm,
it's like I don't think that that's not a coincidence, like, so it is really different. And it's something that I'm still in the exploration phase of. But what I am firm on is people who live abroad, we could definitely heal our ancestral line
that is
if and
such
only
a statement.
if 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 and only if we are going to do the work for ourselves. Because I
Yeah,
know when we hear that, we think, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to help my ancestors." But that's the thing that people don't like to hear. It starts with you.
yeah, it does. Again, wherever you go, there you are. It's that, I mean, there is this trend of living soft and which is great, but it takes work to live soft. It does take work. You got to do the inner work. So thank you for reminding us
Yeah.
all. Do you
Yes. The inner
have
work makes your life soft. I do really think the inner work makes your life soft. I soft with air quotes,
hmm
but as I said, I'm happy that we're even having a semblance of the conversation. I'm happy that people are starting to be like, but wait a minute. You mean I can relax and, like, I could have the things that I want? And
things that have to be so hard and it doesn't have to be
yeah, like, so so
suffering?
so shout out to that. Like, I love this,
Love that.
like I don't have to live like that. Like I could
Mm.
actually have joy and like peace, and I
Mm.
could laugh,
It's
and
possible, girl.
like I could be an entrepreneur or not and still flourish.
And check this out. You can still live joyfully and have
Yes,
peace, even in the
yeah,
midst of your
yeah,
challenges. That's what
yeah,
joy is. I
yes,
think people talk about happiness a lot, and I think happiness is fleeting, but joy is that deep understanding that it's all going to work out for your good, regardless of the situation, the 3D that you were talking about, regardless of that, what you can see right now. We can still frolic in the park and the rent is due. Like we can do both.
house. And that's why I say the and. I think like there's always like this one is like nah.
We
And
can do
it
both.
like you said it, everything is happening for my good. I think even just having that attitude, there's a real gospel song. My friend always sings it, and that's what you made me think of, like all things have been for my good. Yeah, I wish I knew, but she always sings it and it always makes me so happy. But yeah, all things are happening for my good as well. I think from a spiritual context, that's something that I always say, even when the going gets tough, you
So,
know, like, I may cry it out, be frustrated, but ultimately, like, it's all good, like for my Muslim brothers and sisters, when they say Alhamdulillah, like I feel that. It's like
yeah.
thank God. Like life is hard, Alhamdulillah. Life is sweet, Alhamdulillah, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, we're,
um
we're, we're giving thanks through it all because it's building character. I've been through some challenges abroad, okay? I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have a coach like you, and I had to do this pretty much alone. But I've always had the understanding, even when I was back home in the UK, that all is well and all things are working for my good. So I was still able to find those moments of joy, even in those challenging times. And I think that's why I'm still standing. I made it through the pandemic. I made I made it through some tough obstacles, but my I've always kept my joy at the forefront of everything. It's
yeah.
so it's so important.
Yeah, agreed. A thousand,
Do you
thousand
have do you have any quick tips for kind of maintaining mental and emotional well-being while traveling?
I think number one is have some daily routines. Have
Mm,
something that is sustainable. Like, so for example, for me, I love the Insight Timer app. If I'm feeling like I don't want to sit in my own silence, I love the meditations on there. I'm currently reading A Course in Miracles, which is a book that when I started delving into my spiritual journey and um 2007, and recently I had the call to go back to that, and it's a daily lesson, if you will, for the day. So I know some people have devotionals.
mhm,
um I think having at least 2 to 3 things that you do every morning, because there aren't unuseful people, they're just unuseful states.
mm,
And getting yourself in a state of love, peace, and gratitude is what allows you to change your behavior. And I say that the most important things is what you do as soon as you wake up. You set the tone for the day. So I think making sure that you have something that resonates with you. Like I love that you mentioned movement, having hot water. I used to do that as well. Having hot water or hot water with lime. Because you can't rush and drink like a hot water. So it forces you to be
always
very
have
mindful.
my tea. That's the Caribbean in me coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
The
So
tea.
it forces you to be very mindful. Journaling. If you don't have a journal, and even if you're not a journaling person, 3 things that you're grateful for. um and being very real about what those things are. Like, you don't have to make something up. Like, if it's not fun, I'm very big on resonance, because if you do it in a performative way or do it like a checklist, you're not going to gain the benefit from it. So really honor where you are. So I
Mm.
would say having some routines, um And then wherever you are, you should have at least 2 to 3 things that you know that bring you joy. You should
Mm,
always know what you need and how to give yourself that thing, you know? So like for me, I love coffee shops. I just love them. So for me, having like my go-to coffee shop or place in my neighborhood or in the city that I love, if I'm feeling like low or something, I go there. Like it just, I know I enjoy it. Same thing as like if I don't want to hear reggae music. Everybody by now knows my Thursday reggae spot, even if they've never been to Bangkok, because I talk about it a lot. Don't
you
be
gotta share that with
apologetic,
me.
huh?
You gotta share that with me so the next time.
Yes, you have to come. Don't be apologetic about your joy.
Yes.
Um, don't be apologetic about your joy. But I,
Share your joy. Yes.
yeah, and
Mhm.
and consume things that inspire you, especially if it's something that feels far-fetched. So for example, maybe I'm going to use relationship because most people either want money or they want a relationship, right? I want both right now, right? And I think for me is like I enjoy watching couples or people that kind of mimic or show something that I would desire. I'm not gonna watch something that's gonna detract so far from me. Like I just can't. Like, why would I do that? It's gonna
Mhm.
feed into my fears anyway. So finding things that feed into my faith or what I want to see true.
Mhm.
Um, and one thing I will lastly say, challenge yourself. I was watching something yesterday and I did think it was something to remember. Also challenge yourself to be out of your comfort zone. Do something that will make you a little bit uncomfortable because that's how you grow. Tonight, and I'm going to challenge you too, Marissa. I want you to do this in your city. There's an app called Time Left. I don't know if you've heard of it. So this is how I let the algorithm get me to do some things because the algorithm be algorithming. So it's a thing where you sign up to eat dinner with 3 or 4 other random strangers. So
Seen that. I'm
I'm
so
going,
up for that.
you
I'm
need to
so
do
up.
it. I'm doing it tonight for the first time here in Bangkok. Yeah,
Really? I'm so
yeah,
up for it. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So I enjoy, I know this sounds crazy, but I enjoy making myself uncomfortable. Like, I don't know. I feel like it makes me feel alive.
Mhm.
And it also reminds me that I really can do anything I put my mind to. Like, even for people who are not, say, spiritual or they understand mindset work, we all grew up with someone saying, whatever you put your mind to, you can get it, right? This is the
Right.
same thing. So I am nervous as hell. Even as I'm saying it out loud, I'm nervous as hell. Like, what the hell? And when you sign up, you only get little tips. So yesterday I learned what nationalities. I don't know, women, men, age. Like literally, it gives you like the flags. They're like, okay, someone's from Romania, someone's from Poland. Like, so I don't know. And
I
it's not a
love it.
dating, it's not a dating app.
Yeah.
It's just but I was like, you know what? And how beautiful for it to happen on my 10-year anniversary of being abroad. But I
Perfect.
say that to say that I still challenge myself. I still find ways to grow. And I think just know your threshold. Like maybe someone's like, Nicole, you wildin', like I'm not gonna do that. You know, I know for some people they won't even go out by themselves, but
Yeah.
living in a foreign land, finding comfort in being, I think that when you kind of like work this muscle of being uncomfortable, then it allows you to really tap into the other things that you really care about. Because as I said, this is not a dating thing. I'm not gaining anything from, not a prize, but it gives me that gusto for the other things that really are important to me.
Mm.
So I would say challenge yourself to do something different. I remember I was listening, I'll say the last thing, I know I said the last thing before. I was watching Andre 3000 last night, who I think is so fine. And you know, and he was talking about being a musician, and what he said was part of his artistry was that he didn't only listen to hip hop, for example,
Yeah.
like he listened to other genres. And when I was listening to him say that, I thought to myself, it's kind of like when you live in another country and you may intertwine with the other cultures because it's an opportunity for growing and learning, in addition to doing things that maybe are not typical to you because you grow. You
Yeah.
know, you really grow. And that's the message that I got from him saying that. Like, give yourself permission to be a little bit uncomfortable. Like, I think we often talk about it like it's really, really bad. And I think there's a difference between feeling pain and feeling discomfort. Like, you grow
Mm,
from discomfort.
from the
Um,
yeah, yeah.
do
Challenge
some
accepted. I'm definitely going to sign up for it because it keeps popping up on my timeline. The algorithm is algorithm, you're right. Yeah, I like to join groups and meet new people, even if there's a vibe and I'm like, okay, this person's not for me, that's absolutely fine. But like you said, it does kind of give you the courage to do the things that you do care about. It's like, I'm able to just go out. I'm able to just move to another country, first of all. I forget that I've moved across the world
Me too.
by myself. So, okay, you are courageous. So you can go out and meet some new people, you know? So yes, thank you for sharing those tips. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Tell me a
Uh,
little bit about your Brunch with Purpose initiative.
Oh, so yeah. So if you do live in Bangkok or you're coming to Bangkok, I co-host. Um, it's called Brunch with Purpose. Even though the joke is that we don't even pop bottles, we don't have champagne, but it is a platform for women who are essentially, it's like a combination of self-discovery or redesigning or sharing a new gift that they realize that they have. Um, and they present. So we've had a lot of coaches, breathwork teachers come and present. They give us a little information about what it is. And because it's an intimate space, we usually max at 18. Um, and people have been making a lot of connections. Bangkok is a really big city. A lot of the women here discuss how they feel that they don't feel connected. They don't have friends. And, like you hear us talk about the importance of community. And I will say, community and friends are two separate things. Like, you can be a part of a community, but making friends is another level, right? Because now you might be more vulnerable. And please don't get them conflated. But, so I've been creating that and it's been fabulous. And another thing too, for the women watching this, you move abroad, like, if there's something that's not in your country, city, like, don't be scared to create it. Like, Marissa knows firsthand, right? She has everyone here hiking and doing wellness activities.
Mhm.
Um, and that's like such an empowering thing to, like, adding your mark into a space. So never get so upset that something isn't present, because maybe it's for you to bring it there. And as a result of that, hosted my first retreat in June, which was on my vision board, like a retreat. So um wanting to do that, I want more spaces for discussing and just creating like our best lives. Like, I know before someone said, "Oh, like, that's like, what does that mean?" But like, I don't know, because everyone's best life looks different. But
Yeah.
um
I love that. Where can we find out about all your things that are coming up?
So right now you can find me on the Soulful Expat on IG, and then my website www.thesoulfulexpat.com. I'm also active on Threads these days. If you're on Threads, I really like it. Real authentic conversations there. And yeah, just stay tuned. I'm going through a lot of shifts. But stay tuned. If you want like a personal session, you just want to, ask questions about moving abroad, I do offer that as well. But if you're feeling stuck, you just want more joy, peace, love, I'm the girl for it.
That's
Like,
a
make you happy.
girl. Thank you
Ah,
so much.
right.
Thank you so much for your time today. I
Most
really, really
welcome.
appreciate you sharing all your wisdom. And yeah,
You.
everything you said today just resonates with me, of course, because I'm a traveler.
Yeah. Yeah.
And big up all the in-betweeners.
In between. Yes. That.
Big
Yeah.
up all the in-betweeners. No, it was an absolute pleasure, Nicole.